Okay, second part of my video is going through and choosing a motherboard. Like the first one went over is choosing a processor or CPU. This one we're gonna go over on how you find a motherboard. Me, I'm just using a Gigabyte motherboard for example because personally I've always liked Gigabyte. I've had better luck with them, but everybody has their own brand they prefer. If you like something else, go with that. But once you found the processor you like, then you want to find a motherboard that supports it. And since we were looking at the AMD Ryzen, which is a socket AM4, I have found a motherboard that is a socket AM4, as you can see here. Now, once again, Amazon does list some of the specs, but usually it's best to go to the website to see all their specifications. And now when you're looking at a motherboard, there are many different options, and all of them vary a little bit. The most important ones to pay attention to is how many slots there are in memory, uh, the memory speeds, and basically the main requirements for the processor and what you're planning on doing with the computer. Now, there's all extra features as well, kind of like when you're buying a viewer. You have your basic necessities, and then there's extra features they throw in there for a selling factor. And it all depends on what you're after. Alright, first thing, the reason I pay attention to is how many slots of memory, and the reason I do this is for future upgrade. There are motherboards out there that only have two sockets for memory, and they work, but it's not very convenient in future upgrading. The more slots you have, the better it is for upgrading. This one has four, which is the normal default amount for most regular boards, and it can handle up to 64 gigs of memory, which is a good amount. Also gives you an idea of what memory speeds it supports here, 3600 max, all of that. And this also where you got to pay attention to the processor you're using. Different processors support different speeds. If you get a memory that's faster than what your processor supports, you either have to slow it down or it will not work. Another thing is to pay attention to the processor you're using, if it supports ECC or non-ECC memory, which ECC is error correcting memory. Basically, it has a parity, it goes through there and corrects if there's any mistakes or attempts to correct it. And not all processors support that. Usually only server-end processors like Threadripper and things of that nature support ECC. Normally ones like Ryzen do not. ECC memory also usually tends to be a little bit more expensive unless it's older memory. So usually what you want to be looking for is regular non-ECC memory. So that's usually what you want to get for Ryzen. This is just basically the settings of that. Then you want to go through and pay attention to the features. If you're going to be gaming, you're obviously going to want to have a PCI Express slot, which you can also just do by looking at the pictures, which obviously we have a few. If it has M2 slots for solid state drives or SATA slots. And basically, you just kind of go through the features and see what all you're looking for. If you're gaming, you will obviously need one of the PCI Express slots for graphics card. And of course, there's other things that work in the slots as well. RAID controllers and many other things. It just all comes down to what you're wanting to do. Then we'll just go back over some of the things that's got in here just to kind of give you an idea of some of the stuff. This one comes with a Wi-Fi adapter built in, and it's also got a gigabit network adapter, which is good. So you got both options, no need a wireless card. And pretty much all motherboards anymore have built-in audio, which is fine for most people. Uh, if you're by any chance doing major audio editing, like band-wise, then there's better sound cards out there you can get to add to boards. But for 90% of the population that's doing gaming and everything else, the onboard works perfectly fine. This goes over where I was kind of showing you a while ago, some of the PCI Express slots and the M2 places for solid state drives and SATAs. Well, SATA is not considered an expansion slot, but still an important feature of the board. And also, it gives you an idea of the speed. This is something else to kind of pay attention to. A lot of boards that have PCI Express 16x, if you're just running one video card, it runs the full 16x speed, but many of them, if you start running two, drop down to 8x, which I'm not sure if this board does or not. Kind of looking to see if it shows here. Yeah, it shows that one run at 4x, so it may be slightly different. You have to revert to the manual, which you can always download. But for gaming, most people are usually running one card anyway, unless if you're running SLI, then you can look into that. Most boards support the little basic RAIDs of 0, 1, and 10, which, to give you a little quick overview of RAID for those that don't know what that is, RAID is where you use multiple drives to achieve better performance or storage and things of that nature. For example, RAID 0, also known as Stripe, is where you take two drives or any equal amount of drives and combine them together as a single drive. And so we can take two 500 gig drives and put them in RAID 0, and they act as a single 1 terabyte drive. And so all the data is split equally across both drives, so you get double the space and double the speed. The downside is that if one of the drives ever fail, you completely lose all your data. So when something like that, I recommend is using and setting up your operating system and games and anything that's not essential. And anything that's very important, back up on another drive just in case it ever happens, because things can happen. Even if you got a really good brand, something can happen one day and the drive could die. And so that's why it's a good idea to back up things. It's important. RAID 1 is the opposite of RAID 0. This is where you do a mirror image. It takes, once again, has the equal number of drives, 2, 4, whatever, but we'll just take two 500 gig drives, for example, just like we did with the first one. On RAID 1, it makes a mirror image. Whatever you send to the drive 1, it makes an exact copy in the other. All you see is, if it was two 500 gig drives, you just see a single 500 gig partition. Or a 500 gig drive. You won't see the second one. It's in there, but you won't ever see it because whatever you're copying to the drive is making an exact image on the other, which is good for important stuff because if it ever fails, then you still got a copy on the other one. Now, RAID 10 is the combination of both of these and requires a minimum of 4 drives or more for this to work, but once again, has to have an equal number of drives. But let's just say we got 4 500 gig drives. What this will do, it'll take 2 of the 500 gig drives and combine them together. Actually, it'll combine both sets, but you'll only see a 1 terabyte partition because 2 of the drives are being combined to act as a single drive, whereas the other 2 are taking the data and copying across both as backup. And that's basically how these work. There's more advanced RAIDs that you won't be able to use on this board. You have to get a RAID card, RAID 5, RAID 6, and I'm not going to go over those right now. I can make another video if people's interested. But that requires a more stronger RAID card, which most BIOS regular boards won't support. This one, as it says, only supports 0, 1, and 10. But that's kind of a quick overview of RAID. And then this shows what USB ports we have, the two USB 3 and the USB-C, things of that nature. And this gives you some more ideas of what this board has, or what it takes. Internal connectors and things of that nature. Like I said, some of these are necessities, others are just bells and whistles. It's just all depends on what you're looking for. And I know this is a lot of information to try keeping up when you're first building the computer, but keep in mind as time goes on it becomes easier and easier. And like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to ask at my channel and I will do my best to help you. I don't know everything, but I've done this for quite a while, and what I don't know I can usually research and figure out pretty quickly. And always, as I'm doing these videos, there's always a chance I accidentally say something wrong or make a mistake. It happens. But like I said, you can feel free to ask any questions you have. I'm just kind of scrolling down here. That, in my opinion, is trash. I hate Norton. But that's just my opinion. If you love it, more power to you. I'll let you know what operating systems it supports. Which, this is just a recommended thing. It doesn't always mean you can't get some of the others to work. You can usually run Linux and everything else on these things. It's just, this is the ones that they're going to actually show that they know for a fact works with no problems. Yeah, now you even see it does Linux, but yeah. Okay, well, like I said, that was kind of a quick overview of motherboards and things like that. If there was something I didn't cover that you want more information on or something you don't understand, just feel free to let me know and I will help you out as best I can. Thanks.